Imagine an elephant so massive that it towered over today's African elephants and weighed more than 4 modern elephants combined. This was Paleoloxodon nomadicus, the largest land mammal that ever walked the earth. And here's what your history books never told you. This prehistoric titan did not roam the African savanna or the Siberian steppes. In fact, it thundered across ancient India. Even more incredible, early humans not only lived alongside these giants, but may have actually hunted them. So who were these fearless ancient hunters of prehistoric India? And are any of their genes or languages still present among us today? The answer to that question came in 2018. After more than 100 failed attempts, scientists achieved what many thought impossible. From the remains of a woman buried at the Indus Valley civilization site of Rakhigadi in northern India over 4,500 years ago, they extracted the first and oldest ancient DNA ever recovered from the Indian subcontinent. What they discovered was extraordinary. While around 82% of her genetic makeup traced back to ancient Iranian-like ancestry, the remaining DNA reveals something far more profound. A unique ancestral lineage found nowhere else on Earth but the Indian subcontinent. It belonged to the very first modern humans who ventured into India tens of thousands of years ago and still makes up a significant percentage of the DNA of Indians today. Join us as we journey back 50,000 years to walk alongside these first pioneers, the Ancient Ancestral South Indians, or AASI. We'll witness their encounters with now extinct megafauna that once roamed the subcontinent. We'll marvel at their artistic legacy preserved in cave paintings and rock carvings that have survived for millennia. And we'll explore the dramatic cultural exchanges when these indigenous hunter-gatherers met waves of newcomers from both east and west. Perhaps most remarkably, we'll investigate whether any trace of their original languages might still echo in words spoken today. This is the extraordinary story of India's first people, the South Asian hunter-gatherers, more popularly known as Ancient Ancestral South Indians. Long before cities rose or fields were ploughed, a different human species walked the Indian subcontinent. Stone tools scattered across ancient riverbeds and a single precious fossil, the Narmada cranium, tell us of these archaic humans who once called this land home. Then, approximately 65,000 years ago, a remarkable journey began. Modern humans, our direct ancestors, ventured out of Africa. They reached the Middle East and the rugged Zagros mountains of Iran. Here they encountered Neanderthals, a distinct human species that had evolved separately in Eurasia. The two groups interbred, and modern humans acquired a small but significant percentage of Neanderthal DNA that remains detectable in all non-Africans today. Over several millennia, the people east of the Zagros gradually developed their own genetic signature, becoming what scientists now call the Ancient East Eurasians. These hardy pioneers continued their eastward trek, following ancient coastlines to bypass harsh deserts, eventually setting foot in what is today India. The India they discovered was a land of wonders. Here roamed familiar ancestors of today's Indian elephants and one-horned rhinoceros. But these newcomers would have also marveled at creatures now lost to time, zebra-like horses galloping across grasslands and primitive hippopotamuses wallowing in ancient rivers. Most awe-inspiring of all would have been the true giants, Stegodon Ganesha, with massive tusks extending almost 13 feet, as long as a compact car, and the colossal straight-tusked elephant standing 17 feet tall, the largest land mammal to ever walk the earth. Imagine these first humans standing before these living mountains of flesh and bone. From this Indian gateway, some ancient East Eurasian groups continued their journey, some toward Tibet, others to East and Southeast Asia, and still others to the distant shores of Australia. But those who remained became the Ancient Ancestral South Indians, also known as South Asian hunter-gatherers. Remarkably, all these lineages carry genetic traces of interbreeding with the Denisovans, a mysterious species of archaic humans, with the precise timing and locations of this ancient meeting still unknown to science. Their new homeland was a natural fortress. To the northeast, the mighty Himalayas, the highest mountains on earth, created an impenetrable wall. To the northwest, the dunes of the Thar Desert formed another formidable barrier. Protected by these natural boundaries, they followed life-giving rivers inland and traversed narrow coastal plains that flanked the Deccan Plateau southward, eventually reaching Sri Lanka. It is here, in Sri Lanka, that we find the 30,000-year-old Balangoda man, the oldest physical remains of modern humans discovered in South Asia. By 25,000 years ago, these people had begun to express themselves artistically. Delicate ostrich eggshell beads and intricate engravings found in Maharashtra reveal not just skilled hands, but minds capable of symbolic thought and aesthetic appreciation. Around 20,000 years ago, the human population across the entire planet was estimated to have reached 1 million for the first time. About 100,000 people would have lived throughout South Asia, scattered in small bands of hunter-gatherers, likely speaking hundreds of different languages. While these ancient languages are lost to us forever, linguistics offers intriguing clues. The distinctive retroflex sounds such as n, t, d, sh, r, that characterize Indian languages across different language families today are also found in Australian Aboriginal languages thousands of miles away. This remarkable similarity suggests these speech sounds may be an ancient legacy inherited from common East Eurasian ancestors who lived over 50,000 years ago. As millennia passed, these people refined their technology. Hunter-gatherer bands gradually became less nomadic, establishing deeper connections to specific territories. And for the first time, these ancient people began leaving deliberate marks on the landscape for future generations to behold. As the last ice age released its frigid grip around 12,000 years ago, Earth awakened to a warmer, wetter climate. The prehistoric giants that once dominated India's landscape, the stegodons and straight-tusked elephants, had vanished millennia earlier, perhaps surviving only as whispered tales passed down through generations around flickering campfires. Though still hunter-gatherers, the Mesolithic peoples were craftsmen of remarkable ingenuity. Their toolkit evolved into specialized instruments precisely engineered for specific tasks. Razor-sharp microliths, tiny stone blades, hafted into wooden handles, formed versatile arrowheads, precise spear points, elegant harpoons, and efficient sickles. These technological innovations allowed them to exploit their changing environment with unprecedented efficiency. But it is their artistic legacy that truly astonishes us today. Along the Konkan region of India's western coastline, these ancient artists undertook a monumental enterprise that defies easy explanation. Into the hard laterite bedrock, they carved over 1,500 stunning geoglyphs, massive designs only fully visible from above. These sprawling petroglyphs depict a variety of creatures: elephants and tigers from the forests, sharks, stingrays, and turtles from coastal waters, and even rhinoceroses, animals no longer native to the region. Some carvings hint at deeper symbolic meanings. Repeated motifs of disembodied human legs and possible fertility figures suggest complex spiritual beliefs. Most remarkable is the master of animals depiction, a human figure grasping two tigers, one in each hand, demonstrating power over the natural world. This striking image would reappear 8 millennia later on Indus Valley civilization seals, suggesting an astonishing continuity of cultural symbolism across thousands of years. In the heart of the subcontinent stands Bhimbetka, now recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Here, within natural rock shelters, Mesolithic artists created vibrant galleries that serve as windows into their daily existence. The cave paintings unfold like ancient documentaries: hunters pursuing game, communities engaged in ceremonial dances, intimate scenes of family life, and solemn burial rituals. Most extraordinary is Bhimbetka's remarkable continuity of human presence. These shelters, first occupied during the Paleolithic some 30,000 years ago, would continue to house human communities well into medieval times. The Mesolithic people left behind more than just their art. In Uttar Pradesh, archaeologists have unearthed a demographic surprise across 4 separate sites. The skeletal remains of over 100 Mesolithic individuals reveal something unexpected. These ancient Indians were remarkably tall, significantly taller than the average Indian today. These burials, sometimes containing 2 or even 3 individuals interred together, hint at complex social bonds and burial practices. But the long isolation of the ancient ancestral South Indians was drawing to a close. Around 10,000 years ago, newcomers from the Iranian plateau began arriving in Western South Asia, bringing with them new ideas, new genes, and experiments with a revolutionary technology that would transform human society forever: agriculture. The stage was set for one of history's most consequential encounters. The newcomers from the Iranian plateau were genetically distinct from the ancient ancestral South Indians, who had inhabited the land for tens of thousands of years. Around 9,000 years ago, in what is now Balochistan, these western migrants began a revolutionary experiment: the deliberate cultivation of wheat and barley, and the domestication of cattle, goats, and sheep. The indigenous AASI began their own agricultural innovations. In Uttar Pradesh, there is evidence to suggest an attempt at cultivating wild indica rice, not yet domesticated, with seeds that shattered upon maturity. As centuries passed, the Western farmers continued their eastward expansion, encountering more AASI communities. The two populations gradually merged, creating what geneticists call the Indus Peripheric Line. Individuals carrying AASI ancestry ranging from just 10% to as much as 50%. This hybrid population flourished in the fertile riverlands of Pakistan and northwestern India. Their settlements grew from villages to towns to cities, eventually developing into the Indus Valley civilization, a Bronze Age marvel of urban planning, sophisticated writing, and extensive trade networks spanning thousands of kilometers. Simultaneously, another distinct culture emerged on the Deccan Plateau, the South Indian Neolithic. These semi-nomadic people maintained vast herds of cattle while cultivating drought-resistant millets and protein-rich pulses. Their most enigmatic legacy is found in massive ash mounds, some towering 46 feet high, created by ritually burning immense heaps of cattle dung. These monuments, whose exact purpose remains debated, suggest complex belief systems centered around cattle. Unlike their northern contemporaries, they worked exclusively with stone tools, metallurgy still unknown to them. Around 4,000 years ago, the mighty Indus Valley civilization began to falter. Climate change altered rainfall patterns, while rivers shifted courses, affecting the environmental stability that had supported their sophisticated urban life. This period of decline triggered Harappan migration southward. Here, they intermingled with AASI populations, forming what geneticists now call the Ancestral South Indians, or ASI. The ASI likely spoke ancient Dravidian languages, a linguistic legacy that persists today, as modern genetic studies reveal a striking correlation between ASI ancestry and contemporary Dravidian speakers across South India. Meanwhile, in the north, a different genetic blending occurred. Pastoralists from the Eurasian steppe, mobile herders with distinctive cultural and genetic signatures, arrived and mixed with the existing Harappan population, creating the ancestral North Indians. Eastern India had remained an AASI stronghold, relatively untouched by these western migrations. But change arrived from an unexpected direction. Austroasiatic-speaking rice farmers from Southeast Asia made a maritime journey to the Mahanadi Delta in Odisha. These newcomers quickly established themselves, taking local wives and spreading their agricultural expertise through the dense jungles of central and eastern India. Their genetic and linguistic legacy survives today in tribal groups like the Santal and Munda. Over the next 1,500 years, the ancestral North and South Indians continued to intermix, gradually creating the complex genetic continuum seen in most Indian populations today. Only a few remote tribal groups from South India, such as the Irula and Paniya, remain relatively isolated, direct descendants of the ASI and carriers of the highest percentages of ancient AASI ancestry in their DNA. Yet, amid all this mixing and migration, there remained one sanctuary where the ancient ancestral South Indians continued their traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle, uninterrupted for millennia. That place was the island of Sri Lanka. According to the Mahavamsa, Sri Lanka's ancient chronicle, Sinhalese ancestors arrived on the island in the middle of the 6th century BC from India. The legend tells of their encounter with mysterious beings called Yakha, the original inhabitants whom the newcomers fought and pursued for 9 months before driving them into the island's interior. These Yakhas, dismissed as mythical creatures by many, may preserve the collective memory of a very real encounter between arriving Indo-Aryan speakers and the indigenous AASI population. Today, the descendants of these original inhabitants survive as the Vedas, scattered across the forests and hills of central and eastern Sri Lanka. until as recently as the 1980s, within living memory, many Veda communities maintained their ancestral hunter-gatherer lifestyle. The Vedas practiced ancestor worship and revered nature spirits called Yaku, a tradition that connects them with their ancient forebears. As Sinhalese influence expanded during the Anuradhapura period, the Veda language gradually transformed into a creolized form of Sinhalese. A creole is a language that forms when people from different backgrounds need to talk to each other, and their languages mix over time into one stable native language. This new creole preserved archaic words that have vanished from modern Sinhalese, like linguistic fossils. A few Veda words did enter Sinhalese vocabulary, including Kolamba, meaning fort or harbour. Yet the original Veda language itself was lost. We can only glimpse its shadow through some substrate elements in the creole. After following this story across 50,000 years of human history, it would seem that the languages once spoken by AASI hunter-gatherers across the entire subcontinent have vanished forever, leaving only genetic traces in modern populations and perhaps a few borrowed words scattered across contemporary languages. But then, in the mid-20th century, something extraordinary happened. Linguists working in central India encountered a small community of farm laborers speaking a language unlike anything they had heard before. While most of its vocabulary consisted of words borrowed from neighboring languages, Korku, Marathi, and Hindi, more than 25% of its words could not be traced to any other language on earth. This mysterious tongue, called Nihali, stands as a true language isolate, and genetic studies reveal that its speakers carry high levels of AASI ancestry. The history of the Nihali people reads like a survival story written in conflict and resilience. Early modern sources document local chiefs and Maratha armies systematically targeting entire communities of Nihali mountain raiders. The survivors, branded as outlaws, often turned to raiding and theft for survival. They maintained their language and cultural identity in secret, remaining deeply suspicious of outsiders. Their customs offer tantalizing glimpses into ancient practices, the worship of water bodies and reverence for deities with names like Khera and Mutwa. Could these Nihali words, spoken today by a handful of people in the same hills where their ancestors lived 40,000 years ago, be the final surviving descendants of the languages once spoken by India's first inhabitants? The possibility amazes me. Today, both Nihali and Veda Creole stand at the precipice of extinction. Nihali, with only half of its 5,000 ethnic speakers still fluent, faces the pressure of modernization as younger generations gravitate toward Hindi and Marathi for economic opportunities. The situation is even more precarious for Veda Creole. Just 300 speakers remain fluent among the 2,500 ethnic Vedas. Whether these ancient linguistic traditions will survive the next generation remains heartbreakingly uncertain. Yet, there exists a possibility that the Dravidian languages themselves originated from the AASI component of the ancestral South Indians. Then, we are not looking at the death of ancient languages, but their triumphant survival in a family spoken by over 250 million people today. This scenario deserves its own dedicated evaluation, which I'll address in a future video examining the deep origins of the Dravidian language family. But even if the last whispers of pure AASI languages fade into silence, the genetic legacy of these first Indians continues to pulse through the veins of over 1 billion people, and in particular the various tribal populations of the Indian subcontinent. In late 2024, Indian scientists announced they had finally begun extracting genetic material from the Mesolithic and Neolithic human remains we discussed earlier. When these results are published, they promise to fill crucial gaps in our understanding of how these ancient populations lived, moved, and mixed across the subcontinent. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth emerges with striking clarity. Despite the incredible diversity of languages, religions, and customs that flourish across South Asia today, every person in this vast region carries within their DNA the genetic signature of ancestors who walked into an unknown land 50,000 years ago. And while other ancestral components, Iranian farmer ancestry and Eurasian steppe herder ancestry, can be found in many other parts of the globe, the AASI component can be found only significantly in the Indian subcontinent. It is their AASI ancestry that makes the people from this part of the world unique. If you are a history nerd and found this video interesting, please make sure to subscribe to Brief Histories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter of history.